Adept, I did warn you that the neurotoxin might have some unexpected side effects on the subject. I will admit, the subject ripping out his own eyes was a tad bit more unexpected than even I thought possible, but we did learn some valuable lessons today about proper dosages. So ultimately, I consider it a win. Oh, don't tell me you're starting to hyperventilate. Here, have some calma. After a few minutes, you should start to calm down, although your sense of touch may be dulled for a day or two. You know, this calma is a wonderful bit of chemcraft, straight from the factories of House Escher, a house with a long and storied history. Since we have a little time before you get over your panic attack, I guess I will enlighten you with the history of this most illustrious of clan houses. Clan Escher is old. So old, its creation has been lost to stories and legends, but I find that stories always have a grain of truth within them. According to legend, there were three sisters by the name of Celestria, Sidrena, and Solorana, although whether they were sisters by blood or oath, I do not know. These sisters were known as the Blades, and either worked for or fought against the various Iron Lords of Arrhenius Prime, as Necromunda was previously known. With their wits and their blades, they became rightly feared by many, and perhaps would have eventually earned much wealth and power amongst the Iron Lords in time. Such possibilities became impossible, however, with the coming of the Imperium. With the arrival of the Imperial ships, the sisters saw the doom of their world. While the foolish Iron Lords fought and died against the Space Marine legions, the sisters worked in secret beneath the world's surface. Using ancient technology now lost to time, they built cloning facilities in various safe points across the world to ensure their immortality. Held within each were vats that contained perfect clones of each of them, ensuring that when one of them died, a new daughter with the woman's memories would be born to replace her, eventually bringing about stories of immortal queens who, over the millennia, fought enemy warlords, the restrictive and corrupt hand of the Administratum, and each other on occasion. After the Second Great Purge, because apparently the first wasn't enough, the sisters came to a decision. Although they had effectively survived for millennia, they weren't arrogant enough to believe that could last forever. Eventually, either through age or sabotage, their cloning vats would fail. Immortality wasn't enough. They needed a legacy. Searching for a path, they soon discovered Lord Martek Helmwar, an individual they thought could lead Necromunda towards a path of survival. They chose to swear their allegiance to him, and once done, went down to their secret labs one final time. There, the three sisters combined their genetic essences into one bloodline, growing 12 children, 7 girls and 5 boys, who would become the first true members of what will be known as the House of Blades. As for the sisters, not much is known about their fate past this point. It is assumed they stayed long enough to properly guide their children before walking out into the wasteland and into legend. And although no pics exist depicting them, their faces can still be seen on the crown that rests upon the current Clan Matriarch Primus's head. Once Lord Martek Helmwar wrested full control of Necromunda from his rivals, the House of Blades was rewarded for their loyalty, becoming one of the first great houses of Necromunda, and renamed House Ulandari, after one of Necromunda's moons. From this point, we move slowly from legend into recorded history, and the eventual split of this great house into two. Around the 35th millennium, the members of House Ulandari had become rather decadent. Lavish parties, frequent trips to jean salons, and anything else debaucherous you can think of. But not everyone appreciated this rather wasteful lifestyle. Many in the house, especially the young, looked in disgust at what their house had become. These few were reared on stories of the great accomplishments of their ancestors, and wished to return to those days. Eventually, this faction began a mass migration to the lower hives, to return to their roots, renaming themselves House Athenos. Those that remained behind became the Ulanti, and went back to their hedonistic ways, fully expecting the foolish Athenos to be wiped out by the various dangers of the Underhive. Quite the opposite happened, however. House Athenos thrived. Wresting control of various chem factories from a now extinct house, they began producing a large portion of the hive's required chems. Further, they became well known for their genetic purity, their focus on maintaining their bloodline, allowing them to retain the beneficial genetic modifications of the three sisters. So while other houses, such as the Ulan-Ti, suffered from mutant births from mixing with more polluted gene pools through intermarriage with other noble houses, the percentage of such mutations amongst the Athenos was remarkably low. Despite their successes, House Athenos declined along with House Ulan-Ti by the 37th millennia. While their blood was pure, their goals were not. Conflict between the House Athenos Hive Kings were common, the heads fighting each other over the most mundane slights. Perhaps the two branches of the House of Blaze might have disappeared completely if it wasn't for the Two-Face War. Now, if you have seen one succession war, you have seen them all, and I have no urge to get into details. But what is important to this story is that House Ulan-Ti chose to side with Lady Sindek Helmwar, while House Athenos chose to side with her brother Lord Guthrol. For the Hive Kings of House Athenos, they probably found kinship with Lord Guthrol's rather aggressive nature. As for House Ulan-Ti, their siding with Lady Sindek was spurred on by a secretive group within the house, known as the Eschaki. While most of the dissatisfied left House Ulan-Ti for House Athenos in centuries past, those known as the Eschaki stuck around, hoping to change the Ulan-Ti from within, while the rest of the house diluted their blood with intermarriage with other noble houses, and diluted their minds with worthless pursuits. The Eschaki ensured the Blade's bloodline stayed strong, and the ideals of the original Blades weren't forgotten. The war ended with victory for Sindek, and its conclusion brought further change to the House of Blades. The Eschaki, no longer interested in saving a house they now deemed utterly corrupt, left to the lower hives, taking over control of the surviving members of House Athenos, whose previous leadership had either fled or were removed, combining together to form House Eschaki. Although there were now one house, they were still weak from the war, and many other houses tried to wrest control of their properties during this time, one of the most aggressive of these being House Goliath. But not the genetically modified Goliaths of today, no, these were the original Goliaths, naturally born humans, who wished to take everything House Eschaki had. The war was bloody, and by its end, House Eschaki used all manner of drug-fueled murder squads and gene-enhanced berserkers to ensure their victory. And although they were victorious, wiping out House Goliath in the process, dependence on such dangerous methods came at a cost. Many in the house became thralls of the substances and modifications used in the war, and the house patriarchs kept pushing for more and more experimentation to increase the effectiveness of their warriors. Sure, a few may die in the process, but it was a small price to pay for domination. So focused were they on results that they ignored the first signs of what would later be known as the Flesh Curse, as an increased number of mutations were found to be occurring among the members of the house, specifically the male population. This increase in mutations continued until it finally hit the leadership, specifically Patriarch Elok Twiceborn, a wretch of a man whose body could barely stand, and whose mind was tipped firmly into the realms of madness. The other houses simply watched the slow progress of the Flesh Curse amongst the members of House Eschaki, waiting to strike the house at its absolute weakest. And when the madness of the Patriarch became known, the other houses went in for the kill. Eschaki habs and factories were falling left and right, and it looked like the house would finally fall. Thankfully, one Hab mother ensured that would not happen. Vodacia, a Hab mother who led a fantastic defense of her Hab with an all-woman militia army, marched that army to the main hive to meet Elok and demand answers about the poor defense of the house. What she found was Elok dead, and a council of women split in twain by indecision, half wanting to remain stubbornly with the old ways, and the other half wanting change. I can only assume Vodicea and the army at her back were the deciding vote. In that moment, House Escher was reborn as House Escher, with the women of the house taking full control over the defense and management of the clan. House Escher is now a matriarchy driven by skill and aggression, its members taught from a young age to have a mind like a blade's edge, sharp and ready to cut at a moment's notice. Further, they no longer practice the alteration of their genetics, believing that the pure blood of the blades is all they truly needed all along. Of course, that doesn't stop them from using their knowledge to produce new poisons for their blades, or craft genetically modified creatures to aid them in battle. The only exception to this rule is their continuing search for a cure to the flesh curse, to remove the genetic taint that is dormant in every female and makes itself known in every male, a curse that turns their male population into shriveled chunks of meat, who can barely survive without artificial assistance, only good for providing the genetic material necessary to keep the clan alive. Clan Escher is composed of 3 factions: the Maiden, the Mother, and the Matriarch. Although even in these factions, there are many sub-factions within that constantly bicker and even fight amongst each other for a variety of reasons. Those of the Matriarch faction aren't necessarily the oldest of the clan. They instead just tend to be the wisest and most insightful, those whose wisdom is commonly turned to in times of crisis or indecision. And, as far as I'm aware, many of them display some varying degrees of psychic talent. Most barely register as psychers, but a few known as shivers are able to use their abilities to give insights into the future, or even curse the clan house's enemies. The shivers are integral to Escher culture, and any attempts to take the shivers for the black ships have been met with the members of the house closing ranks, and those shivers under suspicion being removed from sight before they could be taken for psychometric testing. A serious crime, but considering the importance of Clan Escher products, a crime that can be overlooked. Those of the Mother faction are generally the workers of the clan house, those who manage the day-to-day affairs of the house and control its various industries. For example, the Factorum sisters are the workers in charge of the various manufactorums under Clan Escher control, such as those used in the construction of highly prized Clan Escher las weaponry, which are known not only for their deadliness and quality, but also their artistry. These las guns are built with the ladies of House Escher in mind, and thus you will not find any standard blocky Imperial guns here. These are works of art, worthy of being on any Imperial commander's side. I know of one Inquisitor who swears by her Escher-made hotshot las pistol. It's a bit too gilded for my taste, but I have to say, it is really effective at coring through a heretic's skull. As prized as their las guns are though, House Escher is most famous for their chems, and that is solely the domain of the most prestigious members of the Mother faction, the Clan Chemists. In the same way that House Goliath enclaves are built around the forges, Escher enclaves are built around Clan Chemist laboratories, ensuring proper flow of resources and proper protection for this most important of facilities. Within these laboratories, you will find Clan Chemists in their purple robes and white veils, performing many of the duties necessary for the continuation of the house, obtaining genetic material from withered Escher males, and ensuring successful pregnancies, producing the various rejuve chemicals necessary to lengthen the life of sisters of importance, and, most importantly, producing the various industrial chemicals that is the core export of the house. And we finally come to the Maiden faction, the warrior caste of Clan Escher, mainly composed of the young and the rash. Many of these young adults are bursting with energy and are undecided about their path in life. Instead of trying to restrict them, the leaders of the house allow them to leave the clan and find their own way. After a few years, if they survive, it is hoped their wild urges will have been spent and they can return to contribute to the clan. Some choose the wilds, the Badlands outside of the hives. Known as wild runners, these women are usually accompanied by a hunting pet, such as a ferocious phalanx. and live in the free, if smog-covered, skies of Necromunda. Many others choose to join a gang, first as the initiate known as a Little Sister, before becoming bloodied and becoming a fully fledged gang sister, perhaps even becoming a gang queen and leading a gang of their own. And while most move on from gang life after a few years, a few have violence in their blood and would rather die as a ganger than let old age take hold. These gang matriarchs are a wealth of experience for a Clan Escher gang and are more than willing to share their knowledge with those who wish to join her. Among the maidens, you will also find the dead. Well, formerly dead anyway. The Clan Chemists have found a way, through some strange form of chemcraft, to, at least temporarily, resurrect a sister. These death maidens are usually brought back to life with a purpose. For the dead Escher perhaps had some unfinished business, and wished for the chemist to ensure that if she fell, she would have a second chance to take revenge. The leaders of these various factions form an advisory council known as the Council of Crones. It is they who handle the important affairs of the clan, and ensure all the factions cooperate for the good of all. Most importantly though, they also advise the Matriarch Primus. The Matriarch Primus is the ultimate authority in the clan house, and has final say in all matters. Although whether that word is taken as law depends on the Primus. In some generations, she might rule with an iron fist. In others, she might be a mere puppet of the crones. It, like all things, depends on the strength of the one who leads. Ah, I see you have stopped shaking. Good, I knew that karma would do the trick. Now, let's get back to our experimentation. Oh, and be careful. As I previously said, your sense of touch will be dulled, so make sure to check yourself every once in a while. The last thing I need is for you to bleed out, because you didn't realize you had a stab wound.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on House Escher in Necromunda. And if you want me to do the other houses, let me know in the comments. And additionally, if you really liked it, please like, subscribe, comments, not just on whether you want me to do a house, but anything else at all. And press the little bell so you know when I post, so that the big YouTube guys know I exist and hopefully more people can see my stuff if they're interested. And if you really like it and you're inclined, please send a little money my way to my Patreon or my Coffee account. The extra money gives me the time I need to work on these stories I love. Anyway, thanks for listening/watching, and see you next time.